A 17-year-old high school student just ran the 400 meters faster than any teenager in the recorded history of the planet. Not in a junior meet. Not in a controlled trial. Against professional adult athletes, on a Sunday afternoon in Memphis, Tennessee, with nothing but a lane, a clock, and the kind of raw ability that appears maybe once in a generation. The time was 44.10 seconds. And the silence that followed, the fraction of a second between the clock stopping and the crowd understanding what they had just witnessed, that silence is what this story is really about. To understand what 44.10 means, you need to understand what the 400 meters actually demands of a human body. It is not a sprint. It is not a middle-distance race. It is both at once, which is what makes it so uniquely brutal. You run the first half as if you can survive the second half at that pace. You cannot. The lactic acid begins flooding your muscles around the 250-meter mark. Your lungs start failing you. Your form degrades. Your legs begin to betray you. And you are still 150 meters from the finish line. Elite athletes spend entire careers learning how to manage that pain, how to distribute their effort so that the collapse, when it comes, is controlled enough to still win. The greatest 400-meter runner who ever lived, Michael Johnson, described the event as a slow-motion crisis that only looks graceful from the outside. Johnson's world record of 43.18 seconds, set at the 1999 World Championships in Seville, has now stood for over 25 years. In that entire span, nobody has come within half a second of it. It is one of the most durable records in all of athletics, the kind of mark that experts had quietly begun to accept as permanent. Then a kid who wasn't yet old enough to vote ran 44.10 at a professional meet in July 2025, and the entire conversation about that record changed overnight. Quincy Wilson was born and raised in Chesapeake, Virginia. Nothing about his childhood, on the surface, signals what is coming. His mother, Monique, was a Hall of Fame soccer and basketball player in college. His father, Roy, played football for the Naval Academy. His older sister Cadence runs track at James Madison University. The family is athletic, serious about sport, and deeply invested in what their children could become. But athletic lineage alone does not produce a world record holder. The country is full of kids with gifted parents who never reach the heights those parents reached, let alone surpass them. What separates Quincy Wilson's story from 1,000 other talented kids is a decision his family made that most families would never consider. They picked up everything: jobs, routines, friendships, the familiar rhythms of life in Chesapeake, and relocated to Potomac, Maryland, so that Quincy could attend a private school called Bullis and work with a coach named Joe Lee. This was not a casual choice. This was a family staking its stability on the belief that their son was something extraordinary. That kind of investment changes a kid. It also places a weight on a teenager's shoulders that very few adults could carry without buckling. When Quincy Wilson was 14 years old, still in middle school, he broke a national under-14 record in the 400 meters that had stood for 30 years. The record belonged to Obia Moore, and it had survived 3 decades of American youth athletics. Wilson erased it while most of his peers were worrying about homework and summer plans. The athletics world noticed, the way people always notice a fast young kid, and then immediately began the familiar ritual of measured skepticism. Youth records, as any serious fan of track and field knows, are broken constantly by athletes who then disappear completely. The body doesn't develop. The mind can't handle the pressure. Life intervenes. Caution is not unreasonable. But the serious people who watched Wilson at 14 sensed something different, and their instinct was correct. The man the Wilson family moved states to work with, Joe Lee at Bullis School, has one quality that distinguishes him from the majority of coaches who handle young prodigies: he does not rush them. In an environment where talented teenagers are routinely over-raced, overtrained, and burned out before they reach their physical prime, Joe Lee built Quincy's development around patience. He controlled the schedule. He decided which meets mattered and which ones were noise. He trusted a long-term plan even when short-term results dipped and the internet began asking uncomfortable questions. That kind of restraint sounds simple. In practice, when a 16-year-old Olympic gold medalist is underperforming and the comments section is full of amateur diagnoses, it requires genuine conviction to stay the course. In the summer of 2024, Quincy Wilson was 16 years old and selected for Team USA's 4x400-meter relay pool at the Paris Olympics. He became the youngest male track and field Olympian in American history. 128 years of men competing at the Games, and nobody had been younger. He ran the opening leg of the preliminary heat in 47.27 seconds, visibly nervous, carrying more pressure than any teenager should reasonably be asked to carry. The team qualified. In the final, Wilson was not in the running order, but the team ran a gold medal race. Quincy Wilson came home from Paris with an Olympic gold medal. He had not yet finished high school. The moment after his first Olympic race, a reporter asked him what he wanted to do to celebrate. He said he wanted to go home and play Call of Duty with his friends. No sponsors. No press tours. Call of Duty. That single detail tells you more about who Quincy Wilson actually is than any race time could. And then the wheels came off. 2025 arrived with enormous expectations and delivered something nobody wanted to watch. In January, at the Virginia Showcase, Wilson lined up in the 500 meters. Against a fellow high schooler named Andrew Salvador. Salvador beat him by 2 full seconds, 1 minute and 1.49 seconds to Wilson's 1 minute and 2.49 seconds. The internet, which had spent months calling him the future of American sprinting, pivoted in the way the internet always pivots, immediately and without mercy. Think pieces appeared questioning whether the hype had ever been real. When the outdoor season started, the losses continued. He failed to qualify for the 2025 World Championships. The Olympic gold medalist couldn't make the team. An actual professional Olympian went on social media and said publicly that Wilson needed a break, that the schedule was destroying him, that they were watching a burnout unfold in real time. Imagine being 17 years old. Imagine dealing with that publicly, the doubt, the diagnosis, the commentary, while finishing your senior year of high school with a gold medal sitting in your bedroom. Most teenagers crack under that kind of scrutiny. Most athletes at any age begin making frantic adjustments, abandoning plans, searching for a quick fix that will silence the critics. Wilson did none of that. He went back to basics. He went back to Joe Lee. He went back to work. July 13, 2025. The Ed Murphy Classic in Memphis, Tennessee. Quincy Wilson enters a professional open race in the 400 meters. Real athletes. Real competition. Bryce Deadmon is in the field, one of the fastest 400-meter runners in America, a grown professional with years of senior-level experience. Wilson draws lane 5. He goes out controlled through the first 200 meters, precisely managing the pace the way runners who understand the event manage it. And then, in the final straight, something shifts. He opens completely. He runs with the kind of authoritative freedom that only happens when everything, training, recovery, mental state, race plan, aligns perfectly. The clock stops at 44.10 seconds. The fastest under 18 400 meters ever run, anywhere on Earth, in the entire history of the event. The second fastest time ever recorded by any under 20 athlete. And the fourth fastest time run by any human being on the planet in 2025, across all age groups, all nationalities, all professional fields. A 17-year-old high school student ran the fourth fastest 400 meters in the world that year. He beat Bryce Deadmon. He beat every professional in that race. And then he posted 3 words on his Instagram stories: on to the next one. No speech. No vindication tour. No long caption about the doubters and the journey and the comeback. 3 words and back to work. When Michael Johnson, the man who owns that 43.18 world record, the man who spent his entire career explaining why the 400 meters breaks people, watched 44.10 happen, he did not hesitate. He acknowledged what he was looking at, a generational talent, the kind that materializes once in a decade if the sport is fortunate. Coming from Johnson, that is not a compliment handed out lightly. Johnson is precise about this event, protective of its difficulty, deeply aware of what the numbers mean. His acknowledgement of Wilson's performance carries weight that 1,000 lesser opinions could never accumulate. Where Johnson's record stands is not a wall, it is a corridor, and Wilson is walking toward it with pace to spare. Los Angeles 2028 is 2 years away. Home Olympics. American soil. Every light in the country trained on one track. Wilson will be 20 years old, with an Olympic gold medal already on the shelf and a world under-18 record that may never be broken by anyone else. The question people in athletics are asking quietly, in the way serious people ask questions they already know the answer to, is not whether Quincy Wilson will challenge Michael Johnson's record. The question is when, and whether the moment he does it will be the most electric performance in the history of the sport. What makes this story worth telling is not just the numbers, as staggering as they are. It is the texture of the journey. A family that moved states on a belief. A coach who refused to rush a prodigy. A teenager who survived public failure, absorbed the weight of a nation's expectations, ignored the commentary, and then ran the fastest under 18 400 meters in history, and responded by going back to work. There is something quietly rare about that kind of person. And the world has barely seen what he is capable of yet.